Dear MK,
Can you help me?
oh my god, you'll never believe what happened.
I need advice.
Thank you, MK.
Welcome to the Dear MK podcast.
Okay, sorry. I need this to be fixed and then I'll be mentally
No,
prepared.
you're totally fine.
Okay.
I always forget too. I need to say my safe space intro.
I thought that was pre-recorded.
I think I had it, but then I'm like not positive if I still have that. I should. Maybe it's fine. I can just start. No, I'm gonna say it just in case. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Dear MK. We're doing another safe space interview. It's a safe space for vulnerable conversations, collective strength, and healed stories. In this segment, we're going to conduct an interview that focuses on deconstructing trauma, rebuilding the self, and healing together. So, welcome to our special guest.
Hello, thank you.
We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. You guys are awesome.
Can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and what made you want to come on today?
So I met Maya through a school assembly thing, I guess. What's that called?
When I came to speak?
Yeah, when you came to speak at our school.
I always forget that, actually.
Yeah. It was at an athletic conference thing, so basically one of those just required things that we had to go to. So I kind of went into it being like, oh, okay, just another thing to check off for the day. But it ended up being something that really resonated with me, and I'll honestly never forget that day. Kind of just like for the next week and a half, I was just thinking about how much that impacted me and how much I wanted to connect with her. And so then I ended up meeting her at a career fair that was hosted at our school, and then kind of just decided to start working with her, do a little bit of marketing with her, and then, yeah, she inspires me still to this day.
Stop. We're going to start off with me crying. Thank you so much. That honestly means it means so much to me. I know that you know that, and just to be able to like continue relationships with students that I meet and then like get to work for me and we continue on, it just makes me so happy. Okay, I kind of just dive right into this.
Go for it.
Okay, can you tell us about when you first started dating and like what that looked like for you? How old were you?
So basically it was my junior year. This was before COVID, so everything was great. It was like soccer all the time, just hanging out with friends. We were just kind of starting to become like teenagers, driving, doing all that sort of thing. And then it was, of course, like, oh, I felt so cool because a boy on the football team liked me. So I was like, all right, let's see where this goes, whatever. So we started dating my junior year. We would each go to our games. It was like one of those classic basic couple-y things. I was like, oh, it can't get better than this. Like, it's perfect. So he started to come around more. He was meeting all my family, which for me, family's huge. So that to me was something that kind of, I don't know, was super important. But so then we kind of just went through like the basic things, just hanging out with each other, going on little dates, but nothing crazy. But it was definitely one of my first more real relationships that wasn't actually like just Snapchatting or just texting and stuff like that. So it started off really great, and then there was COVID, so obviously we all went into lockdown. During lockdown, we decided to take a little bit of a break from each other just because it was like we couldn't spend any time together, and it was one of those things where just, I don't know, we didn't really see the point if we weren't going to be able to hang out with each other and just like FaceTime. So then during that time, it kind of just, I was super upset because I was like, oh, I was going to marry him, 16-year-old me, oh my god, I'm so in love, whatever. And then, yeah, so COVID came around, and I guess obviously that had a huge impact on really anyone. I'm sure you guys could all say that too, but so some things started to change during COVID, and then, yeah.
All right, what changed?
So I guess, so during COVID, obviously, like I said earlier, we couldn't see anyone. I mean, you guys all know that, but he was very secluded in his room, just not doing much. He was never super, like, motivated to do that much, which is kind of mean, but sorry. But, so he kind of just didn't do much, and then it became one of those things where people started to hang out a little bit more, kind of getting back into the groove of things. We would just go to little house parties or like outdoor parties and stuff like that, and I would start to see him a little bit more. And when I started to see him more, I was catching those feelings again, just basically being like, oh my god, hey, like,
It's been a minute.
yeah, still love you, where you at? But at all these parties, like I said, we're juniors, like, we're drinking the UV blue, we're getting lit. I mean, we were just in our houses for like 3 months. So he was always the one at these parties that was like 10 times drunker than anyone else.
Okay.
And I started to notice that, and I like, but for me, I was completely blindsided by that because I was just like, oh, whatever, I like him, he's so cute and awesome, like, whatever. But he was like blacking out, and it was one of those things where I kind of blocked out of my mind for a little bit just because I was like kind of remembering the good parts of like when he first met my family, like going to his football games and just being able to hang out with a big group of us when we weren't all drinking and stuff like that, and kind of just blocking out the bad times with kind of just those older memories. And then it just kind of got into more, we were going back to school, but we also had the choice to like stay at home, so he was deciding to stay home a little bit more, where again, it just seemed like he was constantly drinking or just drunk and kind of making decisions that I really didn't recognize him for, like it just didn't seem like himself. And I mean, but back then I was just basically like, oh, this is high school, we're all gonna learn and grow and kind of just figure out our ways. But for me, it was just like, if anyone would say anything to me, like never my parents, because obviously I kept all that stuff hidden for a little bit, but my friends, they were like, oh, did you notice he was hammered on the side of the road last weekend? Or just like random little things like, oh, did you see he did this, this, and this, and those little things. But I would always just kind of be like, oh, you know, we're all doing those sort of things right now. It's fun, whatever, we're all good. Like, I'll talk to him about it, it's okay. But for me, I was terrified to disappoint my parents. I like would drink, but I most of the time would drive people because I was like too afraid to lie to my parents. So I'd always be like, okay, I'll be the DD because I'm afraid to disappoint my parents, whatever.
Yeah.
So him being the way he was always super weird for me because I was always just like so afraid to ever do anything that made me look bad, I guess, which is it's just I guess I've kind of grown from that now looking back onto it, but I was just trying to impress everyone, whether it was like my family or my friends or whatever, or even him in that sort of way, just kind of like, okay, just because you're doing this doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but like I'm not going to get mad at you for doing it or anything like that.
Yeah, also like I'm just to like continue to set the scene for this. So this started in like springtime, that's when COVID shut down. And you're a junior in high school, you start this relationship, think that like this is gonna be it, like you're riding that high kind of. So then we're now kind of in like early fall, but throughout the summer you're together again and you're going to like these, or you're just seeing him at the parties but you're not actually together.
So we were together junior year and then we stopped seeing each other for that springtime. I started seeing him a little bit during the summer, like here and there, like I said, at parties, and then we got back together again during that end of summer, going back into fall.
Who initiated that?
It was kind of both of us, but it kind of started as like when I would see him at parties, like honestly this was kind of should have been a sign in the first place, but I would see him at parties, he'd be super drunk, but we'd go like hook up in his car and like the next day he'd be like, oh, that was a mistake, but I was like, oh, no, it wasn't. Whatever. So I should have seen the signs there, but it was just one of those things.
It's also just like a bit of a mind fuck, for lack of better words, of like you're a teenager, you're experiencing the world shut down, where no matter what age you are, that's a very confusing, very mentally difficult time for so many people. And you said this person is also just in their room, like isolated from others, clearly developed like drinking as a coping mechanism, like that probably they don't know what to do with themselves. So you're like, well, this is just what everyone's doing, right? Like what a weird situation.
There's no standard that you can use to gauge where you should be at.
So like point. I will give like for sure give that to, and like that's extremely hard to then recognize. Like also as a teenager it is just in general kind of hard to tell like what's too much. Like, you don't really know how to drink yet. Like, unless your parents sat you down there, you know, gave you the full spiel, it's like, you take one shot too many, you're black out. So it sounds like this guy's doing that a lot, and you notice too, like, your friends start pointing things out. You see it happening, but you're like, I just want to make this work. So that's where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess then it just kind of turned into one of those things where when we were together, like officially back together, my friends would still continue to point out those things, but I'd kind of just ignore it because I was like seriously painfully convinced this was like my end all be all for some odd reason. But then it like turned into one of those things where it was like, oh, I'm going to hang out with my friends. Like 2 hours later, I would go on my phone and I'm like, hey, sorry, I was driving. Like, what's up? And he's like so pissed at me. What's wrong with you? Who are you actually with? Whatever. And then it's like slowly developing into one of those things that it's like I'm at the gas station to get a soda with my friends and I'm wearing like leggings and a crop top, and it's like, why the fuck are you wearing that? Sorry, can I swear?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just said that.
Like, why are you wearing that? You look like a whore. You look like a slut. Like, going to the gym. Are you kidding me? Like, I went to a gym where it was like 40-year-olds and 6-year-olds, like, in my tiny town. And he's still like, why are you wearing that? Like, who are you showing off to? Whatever. And still within then, I was like, instead of like raising red flags to me, it just made me feel like I was constantly doing something wrong because I was like, I don't know, like, why am I doing these things? Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't wear that. Maybe I shouldn't. Like, maybe I should text and drive and, like, text him back just to make sure, like, he knows where I am, or, like, make sure he has my location on everything. But in all of these scenarios, it was one of those things where he was either, like, hanging with one of his same friends or just in his room. And as I mentioned earlier, we all knew what he was doing in his room, but it was just one of those things that it was kind of, I felt bad for just kind of doing what I've always done. So I kind of just developed it more into like a fear of like I was disappointing him, or just I was just constantly making him mad or something along those lines.
Yeah, you started to take in his, what sounds like, you know, verbal abuse, controlling behaviors. It's so easy, especially in your first relationship, as we know, to know what is healthy and not healthy. So if someone's constantly saying like, well, like, you shouldn't be doing this in a relationship, wearing that crop top to the gym way too much, like, that's basically cheating with your 40-year-olds in the gym. So you start to second guess yourself.
And when you have feelings of love, you're never gonna be like, oh, maybe you're the problem.
Yeah.
Like, you care about someone, you're never gonna immediately think, okay, it's probably you. You're gonna turn that onto yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, like, one thing for me throughout high school is, like, I mean, even throughout middle school, too, I developed a little bit quicker than other girls in school, so I kind of always, whenever I was looking for a relationship, I was always looking for something where I didn't feel sexualized, because I was constantly sexualized in a way where it was, like, I felt like the only thing a man wanted to do was just, like, take me to his bed or something like that, so that really freaked me out for a little bit, too, so that was one of the things, not that I got lucky with, but I didn't have that aspect of where he was forcing me to do anything like that. So I think that one aspect of the relationship kept me like, oh, well, he's not forcing me to have sex with him, so he must be good. Like, whatever, he must be great, whatever, that sort of thing. But I guess, and also, like, he would be the type of person that would be like, oh, that guy's looking at you, like, what the hell? So I was like, oh, I feel protected, like, he's bigger, he's stronger, like, that sort of thing. So I guess it was just one of those things, too, that I felt like I was protecting myself from those guys who would, like, make comments about my body or stuff like that. And I just felt a little bit safer around him in that aspect, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And it's, like, almost like a false sense of security, I feel like is a good way to describe that. But, I mean, I can totally resonate to that as well. I think you can, too. We talked about that. I remember being in high school and everyone was like, look at that ass, or just things like that, and it was always like older guys. So I completely resonate with, like, when you find someone that you think respects your body, respects you for you, and you're like, oh, well, they aren't like everyone else.
Yeah,
like, at least they
exactly.
respect me in this way, and like, oh, like he doesn't want me wearing that because he cares about me. He
Mhm.
doesn't want others to sexualize
Yeah.
me. So I can 1000% relate and see like how that's just kind of like another form of manipulation almost.
Yeah, I can relate too, obviously, and that makes you kind of sacrifice other things. So it's like, oh, I don't love that he says this about me. I don't love that I can't do something with my friends, but he's obviously protecting me. He's obviously the good, smart choice.
Yeah.
So, you stick with it.
Yeah, and I mean, to like kind of go off topic, but back to like what we were just saying, like it's so weird. Like in high school, it's one of those things, or not even. I mean, kind of just all the time. It just felt like there would be guys who would like be like, oh, who can fuck this girl first? Like who can sleep with her
Right,
first?
yeah.
And it's just like so gross. And then it's like no matter what you wear in school, you just feel self-conscious, and it's like a self-conscious that you should never feel. I mean, of course, but it's
Yeah.
just one of those things that I'm like, I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like that's crazy.
And it's gross.
It's so
like, it makes you
gross.
feel so icky.
Literally, I'm like, ew, oh my god, I'm terrified of kids. Like, it's so scary.
It exists everywhere,
I
though.
know, it's so crazy. It's like, it's terrifying. It
I feel
makes me
like
sick.
that manipulates us into thinking, though, that when we find someone who's not doing that, which is
Yeah.
literally the bare minimum, we're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, a winner.
Perfect.
Like, this is the
Right.
best person I've ever met, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I have to hold on,
Yeah.
because clearly he's great.
Yeah.
It's just that he's not doing shit things in
Exactly.
comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
The standard is like just so
Underground.
low.
So
The
low.
bar is so low.
so scary. Like, so scary. But, so then I guess at that point, it turned into just the constant comments, and then it kind of got to this point where the drinking had turned into, like, drinking and driving. His friends would call me and be like, you need to come get him. He is blacked out of my house, freaking out, and there was times I found him in parking lots where then I had to, like, kind of own up to my parents and be like, yeah, I had to go out at 3 a.m. to go get him. Like, I'm sorry. And they were super understanding. And my mom is super empathetic like me, so I can say I definitely got that from her, because I know deep down she was definitely had her concerns, but I was growing up. I told her teeny little bits of things. Obviously, I worked around things to kind of keep him not looking as terrible as it really was, honestly.
Right.
But so yeah, it kind of turned into one of those things where the drinking situations I would go and pick him up and he would be screaming at me, and like I would even look at his friend and say, oh, like, just, we're good, just I can go near him because he won't put his hands on me. It was always like, he won't touch me, so I'll be fine. Like, don't stop fighting with him, like, let me deal with it, because I don't know, I only, like, I didn't grow up with men in my family besides, like, my dad, but that's always just been a standard that I've always kept, like, I mean, even now, I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like that's something that's so engraved in my brain that, like, I don't know.
Boys can't hit girls.
Yeah, I just, like, it just seems like the natural thing for me, I don't know, but then it kind of, like, on the second and third times that it started to happen, like, he would, like, grab my wrist hard enough where I got, like, pretty freaked out when I was trying to, like, take his keys or something like that. There was nights where he would, like, go missing and just run away because he was so drunk, and I'd just be crying because I didn't know what to do, and I felt responsible for this because he would blame me for his drinking, or he'd kind of just be like, well, I'm drinking because you stress me out, or, like, because of school, or because sports, whatever, and I'm like, I kind of felt that I wasn't helping him in a way, and that I should have been better. So I was basically always just trying to, like, save him or, like, protect him, and kind of just, like, going against, like, any respect for myself, like, kind of just putting myself first and during that time, but...
Yeah.
So many things.
So many things.
First, it was the, like, that natural kind of embarrassment that you feel for, like, around your loved ones. Like, I feel like that's a telltale sign when you, like, subconsciously, like, don't want your family or friends to know everything, because, like, it's kind of embarrassing. I've felt that way too. And then the drinking as a coping mechanism, and then the blaming. You were talking, and I was just, like, listing in my head. I was like, oh my god, that one. Oh my god, that one.
Yeah, he was manipulating her into believing the drinking is her fault.
Yeah.
And then you're doing literally everything you can to save and protect this man, including, like, kind of lying to your own family. But I'm also sure, too, and you're saying, like, your mom's empathetic, she was probably still, like, so proud of you for helping someone else and, like, not being in those situations. And I do find it interesting, like, how cognizant of that you are throughout all of your storytelling so far, of, like, I see these things happening, but I still want to make sure, like, I'm okay and I don't want to get in trouble. Like, you really are doing everything kind of for everyone else. And I do think that's really also, I will say, like, I do think that's amazing that you also weren't doing the same thing, because, again, with the amount of manipulation and, like, things that you were taking on and feeling, that's, like, I think that's really incredible that you didn't fall into that. I think that that's a really common thing that would happen, because they might be like, oh, come drink with me, or, like, feel pressure in that way, and or you see it as a coping mechanism and think, oh, this is a way I could deal with the way you're making me feel, even though he's saying you're doing it to him. But I could see how that could be like a cycle.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I am really grateful for that. I mean, for me, he always had goals. I never really saw him take steps towards those goals when we were together. I don't know if that's rude.
That's so funny.
But, like, believe in that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I have to help him so he can actually achieve these goals. But for me, it was like, I actually have shit to do. Like, I need to have good grades. I need to not be hungover for my soccer game in the morning because my dad will kill me. Like, I need to be looking for recruiting. I need to be doing all this stuff. And along with that, it was like, I felt like I had to guide him towards kind of his life too, but only because he was like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a surgeon.
Like sounds
triggered. And it's just like, okay, I don't know why, like, yeah, good luck, but okay, I don't know.
Wait, I'm sorry.
No, like, what if he wants to be a doctor? I was like, ugh.
Oh, I already know what you're talking about.
From the last interview, but also it's the thing where it's like, men just think like, oh, like,
I can
if
do
the plane,
nothing,
if
and
the
then
plane's crashing, like,
I'll just land it.
I could land it.
Oh yeah, I got it.
I think you're a great example, though, of how, like, goal-oriented and driven people can end up in these situations, too, because I know a lot of people who don't have the insight that we have could be like, oh, well, you're such a good girl. How'd you just end up with, like, someone like that? And it's like, it's so easy to see the good in people and hear what people say, and I think a lot of maybe misconception is that, like, oh, like, you're stupid if you're a good goal-driven person and you end up with someone like this, but it's so easy to see these things in people and fall into these relationships not knowing that's the kind of person someone is. So it's nice to hear how driven you were throughout the entire time.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you.
That's like a really great example of, a misconception, like a narrative. And you just spoke about recruiting. Like, she wanted to play and did play a collegiate sport in college. So I do think, like, that in itself is a huge success, being in this relationship, especially literally that's the year before you'd be going to college. So to still
just having your shit together at all,
like
during a relationship
all
like
your
that.
goals while you're frickin' driving around at 3 a.m. searching for this person.
Yeah. I mean, I like, it's funny because once the story continues, it's like such a flip. But I mean, we'll get there. But do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So then it kind of got to the point where, like, we were still together, but we were fighting constantly. It was kind of me seeing through at that point, and kind of not as much even standing up for myself, but just kind of being, like, getting more angry with him that he's doing these things and getting in trouble with the police and just doing things that I'm just like, oh my god, I would never do that. Why are you doing that? Oh my gosh, stop, please. And it's just like, I was just so mad, and I'm not a mad person. Like, if I'm angry, I'll just cry. Like, I have no, like, yelling bones in my body, but it was more of just, like, every time he'd, like, dagger in or just, like, attack me, I just felt like I had to attack back, which was so out of character for me, and it was just one of those things that I started to recognize where I was like, oh, why am I being mean? Why am I being mean and yelling?
We've all had those, like,
Yeah.
like, this is a room full of lovers, like, very kind people, but, like, you're in that situation, it feels good to be
Yeah,
mean. You're
it
like,
does.
fuck
It
you, I'm
does.
doing it
Yeah.
back.
Especially when it's, like, one of those things where, like, I knew he was never gonna, like, I mean, when I yelled back at him, it was just, like, he never, like, broke up with me or was like, you're done, get out of here, like, whatever. But then it started to get to one of those things where, like, he had a big party at his house, and, like, there was a bunch of, everyone was there. It was one of those things, and he, like, this guy, I don't even know, this random older guy, he, like, was trying to flirt with me and was, like, being weird, and then we were hanging out, and I talked to him. I was, like, kind of brought it up as a joke, because, you know, because I didn't initiate anything. I was like, ew, what are you doing, buddy? Get away from me. But we were talking about it. We were both laying in bed, and I was telling him, I was just like, oh my god, I totally forgot to tell you at your party, like, so-and-so, like, tried to kiss me. It was so weird. And it was, like, that was the first time, I think, where I saw, like, the dark kind of hit, I guess, to say. Like, it was one of those things where I saw, like, a flip, and it was just a completely different side of him, where it was, like, screaming at me, like, what the fuck, what is wrong with you, you initiated it, like, just kind of bashing me for that. And then it got to the point where, like, I mean, he was drunk too, like, I had gone over to his house late at night, we were just hanging out, and he, like, then, like, I was laying down, and he sat up and just, like, grabbed me by my neck and was just screaming in my face. And, like, in that moment, I just had no idea who he was. I was just so scared, and that was the first time that I was like, I don't know who you are anymore. Like, you can say whatever you want to me, but at that moment, it was, like, one of those things where I just was terrified. Like,
Yeah.
and then he obviously stopped before it progressed to anything else, but he was just started crying and was like, I'm so sorry, like, I didn't mean that, I'm just so, like, insecure or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, like, you're good, and I, like, you didn't mean it, you drank too much today, as there's, like, a whole bottle of, like, Jack Daniels half drinking on the corner of the room, and it's just, like, it's, like, almost like I just blocked it out of my mind completely within the matter of, like, 10 seconds. And my friend picked me up, like, an hour later, after we, like, continued just hanging out, like, as if nothing happened. I didn't say anything to her. I just kind of went home and went to bed, and it was one of those things that I just, like, didn't even recognize or, like, almost, like, remember. It's, like, kind of just, like, 20 seconds of my life that I was just, like, oh, no, I'm going to forget about this for tonight, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Reflecting back on it now, do you think you were in, like, fight or flight mode, and that's why you kind of, you know, blacked out in that moment, and then kind of almost, like, catered to him, almost like a fawn response for survival?
I think so, and I think just, even though in that moment when I was looking in his face and I was like, oh my god, who are you, like,
yeah.
I don't know who this person is right now. I think after it was over, I just, like, immediately, it was almost like his face changed again, and it was back to, like, the person that I was trying for him to be, and, like, that I was pushing to keep him as, but in reality, like, 10 seconds later, I was just, like, I guess you're right. It was just one of those things where I was in, like, fight or flight, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that to happen. Like, I'm one of those people where I'm like, oh, I don't want something like that to happen to me. Like, I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. Like, that sort of thing, so.
Well, I'm really glad that you're saying this and, like, describing it in the way that you are, because I think so many people experience that, especially in physical assault situations like that, because, you know, you're describing your oh shit moment. You're like, this is dangerous. I think you said you're terrified in that moment, and you want things to be okay because you do love this person. I mean, that's the theme throughout this entire story, is, like, you want to see the good in him, right? He has those goals. You want to get him there. He has bad days, but you know deep down he's a good person. And in that moment, yeah, to me it sounds like survival mode. Like, you did what you had to do to carefully get out of that situation, because truthfully, like, imagine if you did fight back and he was that aggressive where he was already doing something like that to you. Like, maybe that could have escalated even further, and then he's crying about it after that. But I think that's also another, like, really common form of manipulation, even if they're not intending for it to be, like, breaking down after, not understanding why they did that, and then just making you kind of fall for them and feel bad for them all over again.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely, like, the instant tears. I mean, I see anyone cry. I see a random stranger crying, and it just immediately hits my heartstrings, and I think he knew that. Like, he 100% knew that, so I don't even know if they were real tears, because I was still just coming out of it, like, coming out of the situation. But it was, like, one of those things where I'm like, well, I must have done something to upset him, so that's why he did it, that sort of thing. And it's just so funny to me, because the friend that I got into the car with, like, she's been my best friend since 7th grade, and I'd think now that I would have immediately told her, and it would have been one of those things where it wouldn't be a question about it. Like, I find out what I'm having for dinner, and I call her and tell her, like, it's, like, ridiculous. Like, you think I'd tell her that this happened to me, but for me, it was just like, oh, no, let's go in the car. We literally, like, went to a 24-hour Dunkin' Donut after, and we're just, like, went home and just, like, had fun. Like, it was so weird to me. I don't know, thinking about it now, I'm just like,
that's that reflex to protect that person, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're still in a position where you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, and you, like, I feel like once you reveal something like that to someone you love, you subconsciously know, like, it's kind of over for that person.
It is.
Like those TikToks where it's like, oh, once I tell my mom about what you did, like, you're done. Like, that kind of thing, where it's like, you know, there's no going back from that point. So subconsciously, like, you just kind of internalize it, because you're trying to protect them, and you probably know you're not ready to get yourself out of that situation yet.
And just trying to process it.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna forget about it. So it's like, you going into that car, like, in your mind it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's, like, a whole other thing in itself. But I wanna hear the rest of your story, and then I wanna ask more about when you told your friends and family.
Okay. Well, I guess the story kind of is pretty self-explanatory, how I told everyone. But so then, I mean, me, woohoo, I'm like, whatever, so what, it's fine, I still love him, I want to marry him, this is amazing. And then, again, like, our school was, like, party city. I don't know why, we were always freaking partying. It's, like, scary to look back now, because half the times I was literally sober, so I'm like, ew, why'd I go? But, so then there was, like, this big party at this girl's house that I was friends with, and me and my best friend, we were, like, at her house getting ready. We were just, like, taking the McGillicuddy nips, just having, like, getting ready. And I was drinking for this party. I was so excited. I was, like, putting on my little crop top and my sweatshirt over it. Like, I was so excited. And I didn't know if he was going, but he was like, I might go, whatever, I might show up. And I was, like, excited how he wasn't like, oh, you can't go. Like, I was so excited. I was just like, this is going to be the best night ever, because whatever. And so then we end up going. We ended up getting dropped off there by my mom. It was just me and a few friends, and there was a bunch of older kids there, kids in my grade, whatever. And then, like, 30 minutes later, he showed up, and I was, like, so excited, because I was like, oh my gosh, yay, like, whatever. I was also a little tipsy, so I'm, like, excited about that. But so then he's there, as you can guess. 30 minutes later, he's, like, blackout drunk. He's so drunk, and I'm like, whatever, just having fun with my friends, talking to everyone. And he was, like, being strange. I don't know. At one point, he was, like, sitting in front of, like, the dog was put away in a dog cage, and he was just, like, sitting in front of it because it kept barking. And I don't know. I mean, it seems super normal, but to me, it was just so weird. I don't know. That's such a random detail, but I just remember watching him do that and being like, I don't know, that's so weird. Mm-hmm. And then next to the dog cage, my best friend, she had a rough night this night, but she was, like, so drunk. So she was, like, sitting on that couch, like, just kind of hanging out, whatever. So it was the dog cage and then her chair. And so he was basically sitting in front of the cage, but also sitting next to her, if you can picture that. And I'm also like, oh, he's protecting her, too. He's, like, looking after her, because, I mean, there was a bunch of guys there, like, we still wanted to have fun, but we didn't want to sit and, like, babysit our friend, unfortunately, which is bad, but it's okay. And then, like, I was just talking to everyone, whatever. And I was, like, coming up the basement stairs. And I think I asked this kid if I could, like, throw away his trash. Like, I was like, oh, you need me to throw that away? Like, some random kid. And when I grabbed the trash, like, I kept walking up the stairs. And then he was there. My boyfriend at the time was there. And he was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, starts screaming at me. And I'm like, oh, I was just throwing away his trash. Like, what? Nothing of it. So then that was weird, and then I just, like, was anxious suddenly. I'm like, oh, shit, he's mad at me. Like, I did something terribly wrong. And then we're all just out on the porch, and we're all hanging out. Just, this is, like, probably 20 minutes after. And at this point, he probably had, like, 3 or 4 more drinks at this point. So he is, like, hammered, like, so drunk. And it was just, at that point, I had kind of settled down on drinking a little bit just because I saw how drunk he was, so I wanted to make sure he was going to be okay, which is classic.
Also, plus, I'm just thinking, like, it hits different when you're drinking and your partner's pissed at you.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
oh my God,
it's
yeah.
like instant, I'm going to go cry in a corner.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
I'm really depressed and anxious.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know, I almost started crying, but I was like, it's fine. Like, I just want to keep having fun. I was actually having a good night. So then, like, again, like I said, we were all on the porch, just hanging out, standing there. It was me, my best friend, him, and then 2 of his good friends who were also my best friends. And he's, like, flopping around this porch. Like, one of the side rails was broken, so it was, like, giving me such bad anxiety, because I was like, don't fall off the porch. Oh my God. And so then we're standing there. Again, all those people I just listed were still out there, and he had a beer in his hand, and I was just so frustrated because he was so drunk he could barely hold himself up. So I took the can out of his hand, and I, like, chucked it off the porch because I was like, stop drinking! Like, stop! Control yourself! And I mean, I had a little bit of edge on me at that point, too. I was like, I'm pissed! I'm trying to have fun, but you're hammered! Like, whatever. And so then, it was like, again, it's just so weird thinking back to it because it's like that face. He would make this specific face, and it just, like, scared the living shit out of me. And I, like, it was within, like, a second, but I just, like, looked in his eyes, and he just, like, hit me across the face in front of my best friend, his 2 best friends. It, like, went completely silent. I didn't even know how to react. Like, no one knew how to react. My best friend didn't even say anything, like, it was just one of those things where we were all so close, and I think all of them had suspected some stuff had been happening, but it was just, like, silence. Like, I couldn't even cry because I was just like, what just happened? Like, fuck, now everyone's gonna know. Like, that sort of thing. And so then I just immediately, like, dropped to the ground and started, like, crying after, like, those few, like, silent seconds. Like, freaking out crying. And then his best friend was like, we need to get the fuck out of here. Like, to him. And so my best friend's, like, holding on to me, and I am just, like, I'm almost so mad at him that he showed the world, like, what he was doing. And, like, especially in front of my best friend, who, like, I would do anything for her not to see the bad, and not, like, just the bad in life in general. Like, I would never want her to see something that would make me upset, or her upset, or anything like that. So I was just so angry, and I remember them walking down the stairs, and I just started, like, freaking out. I was just screaming, like, throwing things, just, like, I had no control over my body, and it was just a whole ordeal. And then, like, it got to the point where, like, he then decided, like, when his friend didn't want to leave, once he saw me freaking out, that he wanted to stay. And so then it got to the point where me and my friend were, like, basically put into a closet, like, hidden, because he was just going crazy. And he was just, like, screaming. I was like, where is she? Like, trying to find me. And then I'm, like, on one, so I'm like, let me, like, I'm, like, if he has such a problem with me, then whatever. Like, you've already done the damage at this point. Yeah. So I'm, like, Superwoman and I kick a freaking door down because I'm just like so mad because I'm like, I hate you right now. I hate you so much. I don't even know who you are anymore. I hate you. And he's like getting in fights with people. Like, it is like, I whenever I see people fight or argue anymore, like, I genuinely get like the worst feeling because seeing them fight like that and like seeing them hit each other, and I mean, it was guys standing up for me and it was amazing and I'm forever appreciative of that, but it was just one of those things that he was not backing down, and it was like I had been grabbed and pulled away by like 3 different people, and he just kept coming back. Like, his friends got him into a car at one point and he like jumped out of the car and sprinted back through the basement, and it was just like I had, like, people, like, putting me in the garage, like, putting me in different places, but I'm, like, I just wanted to do something myself. But all of the guys were attacking him at one point when he had jumped out of the car and came back. And then for, like, a split second, I was, like, looking at him get, like, he was just, there was blood everywhere. Like, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And I just was, like, started yelling, like, stop touching him, like, please, like, stop doing that for some reason, because I was just, that anger went away for a second, and I was just so scared for him, because I saw him, like, getting attacked, and I was like, that can't happen, like, you can't, nothing, I don't know, it was just, for me, I was like, yeah, he just hurt me, but don't hurt him, that sort of thing, which is weird now, because now when I see, like, the people that were there that night, I'm, like, so appreciative for them, like, protecting me and, like, honestly, like, saving me that night. I mean, in a sense, but yeah, it was just a mess, and luckily they did get him out at one point, and we didn't have a car there, obviously, so our friend came and got us, and it was just, like, that night, I went home, we all, like, slept at my friend's house, and my friends just, they put me in the middle, and they just slept, like, one of them slept on one side of me, and the other slept on the other side of me, and just, like, hugged me and, like, held on to me, and it was one of the, like, I could not sleep. I was just, it just felt like my worst nightmare was, like, happening, and like, my whole life I've always thought, like, oh, I have it so good, like, I have so many friends, I'm smart, I'm successful, like, whatever, like, and just in that moment, it was like a, wow, like, this life that I, like, brought it all up to be, it's, like, not. And it was just so embarrassing for me and just, like, scary, because I had this mindset that night of just, like, I don't know who I am anymore, like, I don't know who I am, I don't know what to do, and, like, I was just, like, confused, so, sorry, that was heavy.
No,
Don't be sorry.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
There's so much to unpack here. First of all, thank you for sharing, and, like, you're so strong and brave for sharing that. It's really, the build-up, I think, is, like, so evident too, like, looking back and listening again from the beginning of your story. Like, it started with small controlling behaviors, like little jealous comments, then it turned into, like, very significant verbal abuse, him physically grabbing you, screaming at you, then choking you, and now hitting you and continuously fighting to attempt to, we don't know, hurt you even further in front of so many people actively going against him. And that's so terrifying in itself, because again, you would think, like, in that moment, he should feel embarrassed. He should cry like he did before and, like, come crawling back to you, but he was so angry and, like, literally couldn't be stopped, I feel like I could say. And you went through a range of emotions, from shock, like being frozen, breaking down on the ground, and then being so filled with fury of, I want to fight back. I want to defend myself. I'm so done with this shit, and obviously at this point you can't hide it anymore. You can't pretend like it's not happening anymore, and the people that you love have also seen it. So not only can you not protect him anymore, but you also kind of can't protect yourself anymore, like being in that bubble. And so now it kind of turns into like, how will I literally protect myself, and where am I going next? Because like you're saying, no one thinks they're going to be in this situation. Like, you think you're just your average, successful, happy girl living in a nice town with a wonderful family and amazing friends, and it still happened to you.
And you said all the signs pointed towards that not really being a surprising outcome, but you've heard this story before. I haven't heard the story. I was still shocked when you said it. And you're right. Like, I should know better than anyone that, you know, that's probably where it would have gone. But I think we all kind of try to have the benefit of the doubt and, like, not think that little of people. And it's so easy, even as someone who knows these situations and knows how they often end, to still think, well, I didn't think that was going to happen. So just thinking about someone's perspective that's never been in this situation and seeing all those signs, like, of course you would never think that it would get to that point.
And you said in the beginning, boys don't hit girls.
Nope.
Like, that's a narrative that you took in. So that's just, like, another part of, like, it's world shattering. Like, I feel like when you have no idea how to proceed, when you don't think that it could happen to you, and you can't ignore red flags anymore, it's just terrifying. And I just can't get over, like, I can't imagine, like, honestly, like, it's like you're fighting for your life. Like, you're hiding in a fucking closet, then you're hiding in a garage, and wherever else you have a bunch of boys beating up this one guy that's continuing to fight all of his friends to, like, attempt to get to you. And so of course now if you see someone fighting, like, that's incredibly triggering.
Yeah. I mean, I just think, like, overall, when I look back to that day, it's just, like, even the next morning, like, I woke up and, like, obviously my friends had taken my phone and, like, blocked him on everything out of protection, and I'm so glad they did. But it was just, like, I woke up, and this is so weird, but, like, my friends just, like, drove around. We, like, went to an arcade. Like, it had all happened, but no part of me wanted to, like, admit it or kind of, like, actually believe that it happened. I mean, even for, like, years, it took me so long to actually be like, oh, wait, this actually did happen to me. And it's like, you see movies, you see stories, you see couples in fights, and you're like, oh my god, like, that was once a point in my life. Like, I don't know. And it's just, like, that day after, I genuinely, like, had no, like, I was so confused by myself, but I was just fighting back, like, for that reality, and just, like, I did not go home till, like, 5 o'clock, and I was just like, I can't go back to any normalcy, because I'm like, then I don't know, I just didn't know what to do. Like, I genuinely was like, what happens now? And it's not that my friends didn't want to talk about it yet, but it was like, when do you bring it up? When do you say, like, are you okay? Like, what should we do now? That sort of thing. Like, we all kind of just, like, just had no idea what to do, and it was just, like, distracting ourselves to, like, I don't know. And I mean, I think about it now, like, especially talking with her about it, but, like, I thought it, like, I mean, obviously it affected me a lot, but I did not realize, like, how much it affected her. And I mean, I can't even imagine, like, if something like that had happened to her in front of me, like, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know how I would have taken it, but, like, when we were in those closets and in the garage, like, I didn't even realize it till, like, months after, but she was there, like, crying too. She was calling my older sister. She was just didn't know what to do either. Like, I mean, what most people are like, oh, if you hit my best friend, like, I'm gonna hit you back. But it was more of one of those things that it was like, she had no idea what to do. She had no idea how to protect me, or, like, I'm sure she even said it. She was like, yeah, I knew he was shitty to you, but, like, I didn't know it was this bad. And then once that happens right in front of your eyes, it's just like,
It's real.
it's like, what do you do? Like, how am I supposed to help you? Like, I don't know. And it just breaks my heart that, like, if, I don't know, I just wish that she never had to, like, see it, and I wish no one had to ever see it, but then I also, like, it scares me because I don't know if, like, what would have happened if no one actually ever saw it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I feel like that kind of guilt is really common, like feeling bad for people who had to either witness it or deal with it with you. We talked to our last guest about this. I think we've both experienced this. Like, you feel guilty for subjecting other people to going through that with you, even though you were the one actually going through it.
yeah.
And you know that they're feeling the same exact way of like, well, I wish my best friend didn't have to go through this. And I like that you are discussing how, like, she clearly wanted to do everything she could to help you, but, like, didn't know what to do. And she's calling people, hiding with you, like, trying to protect you in that small space.
Yeah.
But just like you're going into whatever fight, flight, fawn mode, like, the people around you are also going to feel the same way. So I think, you know, when people talk about bystander prevention, it's not like one answer is the right answer. And we can talk about it all day long, but until you're in that moment, like, you don't know what you're going to do or how you're going to react. Like you said, like, best friends are like, in my head, I'm like, I would turn into a fucking animal.
Yeah.
And, like, literally go after this man. But it's also like, no, but if my best friend's crying, like, another instant move is to, like, break down beside
And
with
come
them.
there and
Yeah, and, like, the fact that they also, like, cuddled you to sleep.
God.
I
Yeah.
teared up at that
Yeah,
part.
me
I'm
too.
like, it's just so incredible to also, like, even though it sucks and you're like, I wish you didn't have to be there, to have someone on the journey with you and, like, just being there and, like, going to the arcade and, like, trying to act normal for the first
sometimes
day.
that's
Like,
the best thing.
Yeah.
like, again, like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, there really is no one right answer, and you saying it took you, you know, years to process this, like, that's another amazing conversation to have and point out of, like, processing, healing, that's not a linear thing. Like, it can look so different for everyone. So what happens at 5 o'clock when you get home?
So we drove home, and she kind of, on our drive home, she was like, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want to handle this? Whatever. And, I mean, the evidence was there. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I don't know. Like, and she didn't know. We're just, like, little 17-year-old girls. We didn't know how to handle this. Like,
Right.
I don't know. And, I mean, I knew I had to tell my parents, obviously, but I don't know. So we went to my house. I immediately just walked into the back room. My best friend got my mom and was just like, we need to talk to you. And we just sat her down, and she knew. Like, she obviously just knew. And so I actually didn't even say a word. Like, I was mute in that whole entire moment. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to, like, say that to my mother. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, especially for someone, like, she let him into her house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she accepted him. She got him gifts. She made him dinner. She donated to charities that he was support. Like, she gave her money. She gave him money for, like, fundraising. Like, she just did so much for him that, like, I just didn't want her to feel that, like, regret or, like, that she could have done more. And so my best friend just did all the explaining, and my mom, she stayed, like, so strong in that moment, and I'm so glad she did, because I think if I ever saw her break down, it just would have, like, killed me, because I would have felt guilty for some reason. But so then basically she was like, how do you want to deal with this, like, with Dad? And my dad, he's a big teddy bear, but, like, that's his girl. Like, I'm his little girl, and he's, like, my best friend. So I'm like, oh my God, this is a whole another thing I do not want to tell him. Like, oh my gosh. But so she ended up telling him. And then it was, like, after I told them, I'm like, how do I keep going? Like, what do I do? And I guess it just, like, my mom was so supportive. She just said, she was like, how do you want to handle this? Like, do you want to go to the police, or do you want to, like, what do you want to do? Like, she really just gave me all the options for me to decide. And I think that was just so helpful, because it was, like, I don't know, it's just such a big decision for you to make at such a young age, especially because it's, like, I spent the past 2 years, whether it was, like, off and on with him or just, like, just loving him constantly, and I didn't want to have to make a decision like that to get him in trouble or to potentially ruin all those dreams and goals that we had, like, built together. And it was just, like, how do you make that decision? I mean, I'm sure even my mom, like, it's her first time living, and she didn't know how to handle that either. Like, she has 4 girls, but, like, none of this had happened, and I don't know. And, like, she was blindsided. She thought he was so great. And, I mean, he did. He put on this, like, mask around people where he just, like, seemed so perfect. But then it was behind closed doors, I knew the truth. And then it was, like, when that all finally came out, people were just so confused, I guess, in a way. But, so, he always wanted to go to school really far. So, I kind of said, I was like, I would so much rather him go as far away as possible than, like, him. He already had stuff on his record. So, like, if this had gone, like...
From the drinking?
Yeah, from the drinking and just, like, crazy things him and his friends would do. So I was just, like... It took me, like, a week to decide, but I was just, like, let's just talk to his parents. Like, I respected his parents a lot. Like, they're very good people. But I don't know. I was also just so afraid to take it any further. I don't know. It just, the whole thought of that scared me too much. And being that young, I was like, just, I don't know. And I was so afraid of ruining his life, like, which is crazy, but I don't know. I just didn't have the power to do that at that time. So my mom had talked to his mom, and they came over to my house, and my parents and I sat them down. I, like, head was down the whole entire time. Like, I did not want to look at them because I just was like, I would come and eat dinner with all of you guys, and now I'm telling you everything your son has done wrong, or my parents are telling you everything your son has done wrong. And it was just so weird, because I'm like, they didn't know that. Like, they didn't know that about their kid. Like, who wants to know or find out something like that about their kid? Like, they knew he was making mistakes and, like, getting in trouble, but I don't think they ever thought that he would do something to this extent. And so my parents were doing all the talking. They were just kind of saying about what had happened, and the parents were kind of like, oh yeah, well, not the parents, actually, I'm going to say his mother. His mother was like, oh, well, he said that he just, like, swung his arm and he didn't know who was in front of him. And my mom was like, what? He didn't know who was in front of him, as if it's not his girlfriend for the past, like, 2 years, who's 5'2" and pretty, like, what? And she was like, well, he said that he, like, didn't know who it was, and he would never do something like that to her, like, whatever. And I'm like, at that point, I, like, picked my head up, and I was like, are you kidding? I was like, I respect you guys so much. Why would I lie to you? Like, why would I make something like this up? Do you think this is enjoyable for me? Like, telling you all of your son's secrets about all the shitty things he's done? Like, do you think this is enjoyable? And it just seemed like she was, like, blocking it out. His father was mortified, and that was really hard. But his mother, it was just like she was fighting for her son, and that was so offensive to me, because I was like, you're a woman. Like, you should be so upset. I mean, not with yourself or anything, but it's just like, you should just, like, at least understand this. Like, what if this had happened to you, or what if you had a daughter? And it's just, the conversation just escalated to a point where, like, it was getting nowhere, and my dad was getting frustrated, my mom was getting frustrated, and it ended fine. Like, the father apologized to me, and the mother apologized to me too. It wasn't too genuine, but nothing I can do about that, but whatever. And then they left, and it was just kind of like, alright, I did something about it, now what?
And it didn't go well.
Yeah.
I first want to say that love your parents. Amazing mother. I think it's incredible that your friend was able to sit down and share the story for you, because it's so hard to, like we're saying, process what happened, to be able to tell the story in the same way. Like, it takes victims 2 to 3 REM sleeps to talk about an accurate, like, description of what happened to them sometimes, and you had literally just had this happen the night before it, and I'm sure you didn't get much sleep. And then just like a educational moment of 8 out of 10 times the victim knows the perpetrator. Like, that's fact. And everybody always loves to say, like you said, they would never do that. They would never do that. I know them. But it's like, you do not 100% know anyone. I don't care if they're blood. I don't care, like, how much you trust someone, especially if they're under the influence and intoxicated. I can't imagine I'm not a parent. Like, I do not know what it's like to be a mom. But of course you want to protect your child. Of course you don't want to believe that they could do something this awful to someone else. But I also completely would feel the same exact way as you, of like, I don't want to be in this position. Like, I didn't want this to happen to me. Why can't you just believe me? And it's so too common for survivors to then attempt to share their story, attempt to, you're not even seeking justice. You're trying to help him still.
Yeah.
Like, you are still choosing to get him help and, like, hope that his parents will get him the help he needs so that this never happens again. And you're still not even getting the, like, respect.
Yeah.
You said it yourself that he kind of put that mask on, though, and that's so common. I feel like we've all seen that. Probably everyone who's experienced this has seen that, and that's what manipulators do. That's what abusers do. That's what they're known for doing, is, like, hiding kind of behind closed doors and only showing very certain people that they're very close to this true side. So, like Maya said, it's just sad because we know that's something so many people experience.
Yeah.
And typically that's, where kind of like the fight or healing in that sense ends for a lot of people, because if you don't get the response that you were looking for, that's extremely defeating. Like, you want people to believe you, and also there were so many people involved. Like, a lot of times this happens behind closed doors. This was essentially public.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many eyewitnesses. So was that a part of the conversation? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we did, because obviously the parents knew the friends,
Yeah.
the guy friends who were there, and my parents were like, your son's best friends were there too, like, you can ask them, like, and I mean, I know deep down, like, the mother knew.
She was in shock.
She knew. Like, he had been acting out so much within the past year after COVID. She knew, but I just think she didn't want to accept it. And that was, like, a point I made at the end of the conversation. I was like, I could take this to the police so fast right now, but I know he wants to go across the country to school, and I want him there. I don't want him anywhere near me. I am, like, I could go, I was like, I can go over there right now. Like, I don't know. It's just, and it's hard because I think about it now, like, as a mother, like, you would never want to hear something like that about someone.
No.
It's just, like, I mean, even me, like, I have sisters, like, if I don't know, just hearing something like that about someone that you love and trust so much, it's just, like, what the heck? I don't know.
So you never reported?
No.
Okay. And then, was there, like, a social reaction, like rumor mill, because it happened in front of some people? Like, what was the, like, did the town know about this?
It's funny because, like, my town was super cliquey, and so it did get out, like, it was talked about around schools, and around school, sorry, and it was discussed, but again, it was during that time where we could choose if we were, like, hybrid or not, so, like, whether or not we wanted to go to class in person or over Zoom. And after that week, after that night, I sat in my living room for, I think, maybe a week and a half. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't go to soccer. I didn't go to school. Like, I got in fights with my parents because I was just like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go back and play the sport that I played my whole entire life. I don't want to go hang out with my best friends. Like, I just had no vision of, like, what my life was anymore, and like you said, it was so public, I knew everyone was talking about it, and I didn't want to get those looks like, oh, this poor girl, or, like, anyone, maybe even people, like, making up things about it, or like, downplaying things. Like, I had so many thoughts in my head, yet, like, nothing in my head. It's such a weird feeling, because it's, like, I was overthinking so much about, like, what other people were saying, and, like, who knows, and if the school's gonna find out, but, like, I also just I had never experienced such, like, unhappiness, and just had no, like, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, it was, like, I had no control over my body whatsoever, and it was, I was doing the Zooms classes, I wasn't going to school, but, like, I was putting my computer to the side and just, like, staring at the ceiling. Like, I look back at it and I'm like, I barely even remember, like, the last 2 months of my senior year of high school, because it was, like, it was just so traumatizing for me, because I gave up everything. Like, I ended up, like, not taking some of my last tests of senior year, and, like, not going to things and stuff like that, just because I had no, like, I just had no idea who I was. And to me, at that point, like, I had already been recruited, and I didn't want to do that anymore. Like, I didn't want to go to school anymore. I just thought everything was pointless, and it was, like, so scary. And I think, like, my parents reacted in a way of, like, not anger, but just, like, trying to get me out of it, because they had never seen me like this, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to go hang out with my friends and, like, have fun. Like, it's so sad, because I'm such a bubbly person that, like, I did not smile for, I think, like, 2 weeks. And thinking back at that, like, I just want to cry, because I'm like, oh my god, like, it's just so weird. I don't know, like, I don't even know how to describe the feeling of, like, not knowing who you are. It's very out of body. I don't know.
I think we talk a lot about feeling like a shell of a human.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way you're describing it. I think both of us have been through periods like that, and it's not weird, it's so normal to, it really feels like you were destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it is really hard to find words to describe the way that you were feeling, but I think that you just did that so perfectly, and, like, set the scene for anyone that, one, has never been in a situation like this, of how much of an impact that has on our mental and physical health, and, like, even your social, like, your overall well-being, like, everything that you were enjoying, loving, the things that made you you, kind of fell away for a couple of months. You had no idea who you were. Like, I think that that's an extremely common experience to go through after, and I think it's also really amazing to admit, like, where your mental health was, and that you did not leave your couch. For anyone else that has been in moments like that where they don't feel like they can share that, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, like, it was one of those things where when I finally did start to decide to, like, do things again and kind of, like, try and get back into it, it was more of, like, I was getting into bad habits, like I said earlier, like, yeah, I was actually going to the classes, but I wasn't doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't eating, like, typically what I would eat, and I just, like, was being mean to friends or just doing things that were so out of character. And it was just almost like I, like, completely lost myself in every aspect. Like, I would go to a game and I would not give a, like, crap about what the heck I was, like, doing. I was like, I do not care. Like, and I was like, I was getting mad at my dad, too, for, like, getting mad at me for not caring. But it was just one of those things that he was just like, what? What's
Right.
going on? Like, he was as confused as I was, but I was just like, I was drinking more, like, I was just kind of doing all these things that seemed like distractors, like, I don't know, it was just, I look back at it now, and I mean, it even went into, like, my freshman year of college, just like, oh, I'm in college now, like, I can do whatever I want, like, yeah, I had this happen to me 6 months ago, but whatever, so I'm just gonna, I don't know, it's so scary to think back to, because I'm like, now kind of settling back into myself and growing from that, like, I get so embarrassed that I did all that stuff. I'm like, oh my god. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh my
It's
god.
okay.
Okay, cut. Sorry.
No, you can keep going.
It's just so weird. It's so out of character, because I'm like, I don't know. But it's definitely, like, I made mistakes during that time that make me upset now, but I know it was just, like, one of those things where I just needed to figure out who I was again and who I want to be without dealing with something like that. I don't know. It's definitely life-altering, especially in the fact that it happened, like, so young.
Yeah.
Like, another point I would always say to people was just, like, that's not supposed to happen to me. Like, that happens in movies, and it happens to people who are married, and people who are, like, 30 years old, but that's not supposed to happen to me. I'm in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just supposed to have a fun relationship where I'm just dating someone, and I'm taking their sweatshirt at a game. Like,
Right.
that's not supposed to happen.
I think we all
Yeah.
have those feelings, and that's how we all go into those relationships so unprepared, and, like, what we're trying to negate right now is this
Yeah.
concept that it doesn't happen to young people, and, like, it won't happen when you're starting out in relationships, because that really is when it's the most common, or, you know, one
Yeah.
of the most common times. And, you know, so many people go in with that mindset that, like, I would never be one of those people, because we just don't know how common it is. But I think, like I said before, you're a perfect example of someone who just kind of does everything right and just gets unlucky, because it is so frequent, it does happen, and it just happened to happen to you.
Yeah, we're breaking so many stigmas. Honestly, you're doing incredible. Did you go to therapy?
I tried it, but just during this time, I was in such a mindset of, like, the only person who can help me is myself,
Mm-hmm.
which I think back now and I'm like, come on, like,
You're like, just push through,
yeah,
kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, like, super competitive, whether it's with myself or with, like, anyone, so it was more of one of those things that I kind of just, like, made it a competition for me to even just, like, get through every day and, like, go to school and
Yeah.
play the sport that I worked so hard for, like, to play in college. And it's just one of those things that everything kind of became a force for a long time. And then just, like, everything that was unhealthy for me, like, mentally, physically, with injuries and stuff like that, was just happening throughout, like, freshman year while I was still trying to cope with these things. And I just kept getting beaten down, and then I finally was like, all right, I should go to therapy. Like, I should probably talk to someone about this. This isn't that, like, this isn't normal. Like, I don't know. But I'm really glad I did, because it was super helpful, just kind of getting a little bit more in depth with, like, myself and,
Yeah.
I don't know, with what happened, but
Was there anything that you learned in that process, or just in general, that you could, you know, kind of give advice to others if this is something that worked for you in processing or healing?
I guess just in my opinion, more of like you don't have to be afraid to ask for help. Like I just said, I'm super competitive, but like there's no competition within like trying to heal yourself, or like there's no competition in happiness. I don't know, that sort of thing, where it's just like I was so adamant about fixing myself on my own and not worrying other people, but also like destroying relationships in that process, like doing things that pissed people off and like acting not like myself. But I still was like, well, I'm gonna figure it out by myself and not ask anyone else for help, even if that means I ruin relationships, even if that means like I mess up badly and like do stuff that is so out of character, which is like, I don't know, I just think it's so scary to admit that you need help, but as soon as you do, it's like so eye-opening. And when you have like supportive people around you, it's just so life-changing, because like I said, like my best friend was there for me through like the whole step of the way, and she never backed down on that. And she, even though she saw me fighting to like fix myself on my own, she was always like that person kind of there, like helping me in little ways, whether it was like just sending me an inspirational quote or just like letting me cry to her, but me still being like, oh, that was ridiculous, like, sorry for crying. Just, she always knew. Like, she always knew what was going on, and she always knew, like, I don't know, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I just think that overall it's like something like this I once looked at like was a weakness, and like I felt just so weak that I had let something like this happen to me. But that is just so wrong. And I just think overall that, like, yeah, if I could take back that whole entire experience, I would in a heartbeat, but, like, I would never be the person I was today. Like, I would never have the strength that I have today, and, like, the resilience, and just be able to understand people, and just, like, meet people like you guys and stuff like that.
I cried. So beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that, especially as a collegiate athlete. I think that's so important, because there is a stigma around mental health and getting help, and I think a lot of times the message is like, just keep fighting through, pushing through. Oh, what's your therapy? Mine is working out. Like, I think people say that all the time, but it's like, as an athlete, like, if you were to get physically injured, where are you going? You're going to the doctors, you're going to get PT, and they're helping you get better. So it's the same thing mentally. Like, sometimes we just need people to help us through that process. And, you know, you keep bringing up your friend, and I think that's another theme that's so common in every story we hear, like, the friend that never gave up.
Yeah.
Even when, I'm just going to say acting out for, like, the list of things you said. Even when you're acting out of character, them understanding, like, that's your trauma response. Like, there's something not healed there yet, and I'm going to stick by her until she gets that help she needs. Like, I think that's sometimes it is enough just being there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, was there like a moment where you were like, I see the other side? Like, it's gonna be okay.
So, I guess, like, I don't, like, so I have a tattoo on me, and it says strength through weakness. You already know. But I, like, got that so randomly. Like, it was so, I didn't think I was ever gonna get a tattoo. Like, I probably won't get any others. But it was something that I just did, and, like, I look at that, like, I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I made that quote, like, whatever. But it was more of just one of those things that throughout that whole entire time where I was trying to figure out, like, who I was again and who I wanted to be, it was just, like, in my darkest, scariest moments ever, it was, like, I somehow always managed to pull out, like, that little bit of strength when, like, I thought I had nothing. And whether that strength was, like, me, myself, or, like, whether that strength was my best friend or my mom sending me a text or something. So I just think it's, like, going back to your other question before, too, like, I guess just, like, never giving up on, like, because there's always, like, those little signs. Like,
Yeah.
there was so many moments where little things would happen, or I'd see little things, and it would just always click in my head that I'm like, it's going to be all right. Like, it's going to be fine. And I'm not even going to try and be cheesy right now, but I think the moment that I, like, figured out it was going to be good was when I heard your speech.
Stop.
I'm not kidding at all. Because it was one of those things where I felt seen, and then as I started working with you, it was like, I was understanding things, and I was, like, learning things about, like, the shit happens, like,
Yeah.
holy crap. And then I made a list of, like, the goals, and one of my goals was to speak in front of guests with you. And then as we, like, went through the process of, like, writing that story, like, I remember as we finished it, like, we read it out loud together, like, the final product, and I just, like, broke down, but it was more of, like, breaking down out of, like, I did this, and I'm gonna, like, you know, I was like, I'm never doing that. I'm never talking, like, in front of people. Are you kidding me?
We
Like,
worked up to it.
literally, and it was just, like, then when I went on to, like, talk about it, like, I say this to you all the time, like, I didn't care about how many times I stuttered. I didn't care about me saying a word wrong or looking stupid or my face being super red or anything of that sort. It was just more of, like, if I could help one person out there with this story that I thought was going to destroy me, like, that's all that mattered to me. And it was just, like, at that point, I was finally, like, I deserve good and I deserve better, and, like, this story I'm not going to let define me, but, like, I'm going to use it for good in that sense.
Yeah, it's a part of you.
Yeah.
That was so beautiful. And I'm obviously, like, so grateful to be a part of your story. And I'm just so incredibly proud of you. Like, you're literally doing that again right now, if you haven't processed that yet. I really think that this will reach and help so many people, especially young women who can resonate with probably so many aspects of this story. Like, your first love, like, wanting to make your parents proud and following your dreams and getting into college, and the fact that you basically ran on, like, an ounce of strength for a year and 6 months, it sounds like, before you, like, even attempted to, like, get therapy or help yourself in a greater sense. Like, that is so impressive, and I want to give you so much credit for that alone.
I think it's been really impressive, too, to hear such a, like, a healed story. Like, I'm not going to speak for you, but when you speak, it's very clear that you're not holding, like, anger or resentment. Like, obviously you told us what your emotions were as things were happening to you, but it's been obvious to me that you've been able to let a lot go, which is so nice.
If we can giggle.
It's a good sign.
Exactly.
And obviously the last guest we had was still working on that, and I feel like we both have the mindset that, like, you're never truly healed, you're always still working, and, you know, we're so used to talking about this, but to have someone come in and, like, you said you don't do this often, you haven't shared your story in a long time, and I'm going to expose you came in nervous, definitely, but to, like, when you were speaking, it just seemed like, wow, she's so good. She's, like, done the work, she owns this, she, like, is confident in it, and that was so nice and so refreshing to hear, and I think will be for everyone else, too.
For sure.
Yeah, I hope so. And I mean, even, like, going off of that, it's just, like, another thing that I would love to share. It's just, like, for so long, after a relationship like that, it's, like, I didn't think I deserved anything better than that. Like, relationships were totally, like, at the back part of my mind, and it was something that I was, like, I'll figure that out when I need to. Like, I don't want to do that. And my little guy now, I pushed him away for so long because I was, like, craving the toxic. I was just, like, I didn't want something that was going to be good for me. And that's just a mindset that I had for so long. But once you kind of just, like, let go of it and, like, really just literally look in the mirror and be like, you deserve so much. Like, you're here for one life. Like, you deserve so much. And now I've never been happier, and I never, ever thought I would ever be in a position like this. So it's just, like, it happens. It comes and it happens, and I never thought it would, but it does. And so I think that's really
And you
important to know.
deserve it. You deserve it more than anything.
And the fact that you know you deserve it is even better.
Incredible. What empowers you most today?
I would say honestly just my family. Like I said, like we're all very tight knit, and as you can tell through the story, like me showing them any of my hurt like would just kill me, and that's something that I never wanted to do, but I just think them like even through that, like pushing me. And honestly, I consider my best friend within that realm of like family, because like we were saying earlier, like I went to her sister's wedding and we were like bestied so hard, like went to the wedding, like so funny. But just like having those people there for me to this day, I honest to God, I don't like know if I would be here if it wasn't for them. And like my parents just constantly giving me either that tough love or just like letting me cry, letting me be upset, and just having that sort of support system was just so amazing. And I think their strength makes me want to be more like gives me more strength every day. But yeah, I would say mostly my family.
That was beautiful. Yeah, they accepted all parts of you throughout the entire process, and I think that's so amazing. Do you have any final, like, last thoughts or advice for our listeners, and or something you think just everyone should know about unhealthy or abusive relationships?
I can read, like, a little part of that story thing, like, the end of it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. But I would also say, like, my last words of advice just would be, like, I'm sure throughout the story it was, like, for me, it was one of those things that I was, like, all right, like, this is my life. And then, like you were saying earlier, it's, like, it's not me anymore. Like, this just isn't, just because it happened to me, it's not my whole entire story and it's not my whole entire life, but it's just, it's something that's built me.
Yeah.
And it's, like, it honestly gives me strength every single day to just, like, get through small challenges or big challenges, or, like, it's one of those things, like, I got through that, I can get through anything. So I just think keeping a positive mindset when things are so dark is just so important, even when, like you said, you only have that 1 ounce of, like, energy to do things. But,
right.
Let's see. Actually, okay. If there's anything I want you to take away from this, is that on your weakest days, know you are not alone, and you can always find a little bit of strength. Strength in yourself, strength in your survival, strength in the people who stand by you, strength in your power to walk away, and strength to heal. I stand in my brighter light in front of you to help you find your own strength and see it through.
Beautiful. Oh my God, wait, what a perfect, beautiful ending. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Like we said before, I think it's going to help so many people, and I'm just so incredibly proud of you for absolutely everything you've been through and the person that you are today. I think I've gotten to see you grow a lot, and it just couldn't make me happier having you, like, sit across from us and do this interview. So we're so grateful to have you.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, love you.
Bye.
That was so good.
Was it? Did I talk
Do
too
you
much?
feel
No.
good? No, are you
did
kidding
great.
me?
Okay.
It's really sweaty. Thanks.
Same.
Yeah, same.
Oh my God.
I was like rubbing my foot with this, so.
Well, that's okay. I feel like it's so great that there were so many things that, like, stigmas that we went over from, like,
Yeah.
like, there were just so many things I think I was like, that's such a good message.
Yeah, I felt like this was a really easy to relate to everybody
Yeah.
episode. Like, last one was like you need to sit and you need to just like
Yeah.
hear the shit people go through, but like this was like, I feel like anyone who's been in any of these situations could relate to at least something and definitely take away from it, which is great.
Well, it's like, honestly, it's just such a common story of, like, I'm so young and I thought this, and, like, I'm trying to protect myself and others and, like, not get in trouble. I think that alone is amazing to hear. And honestly, like, next time I go to a high school, I'm like, listen to this one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Like, it's
if
the
there's a young
perfect
audience,
story.
this is the one that they should be hearing.
Right? How do you feel?
I feel good.
Okay, good.
I'm like so surprised I didn't cry.
I know, we all
I'm
like
surprised
teared up
I
a few
didn't
times.
cry.
Yeah, you guys are tearing up, and I was like, okay, just calm down. I was
I was
like,
like,
don't look at you. I was like, I can't look at you.
I forgot about the choking.
Oh my god, yeah.
I don't know how I forgot about that part. Wait,
And-
did you turn that on?
Oh God,
Yeah,
no.
turn that on.
Oh.
Till next time, XOXO MK.